Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today I have a special treat for you. I'm going to share with you a replay from one of my fall speaker series. This is a talk by one of my colleagues named Cassandra Tyndall, who is someone who's been out and taught at my school for my students many times and has participated in our speaker series many times before. This is a talk that she did for beginners on the fixed stars. So I am just completing a masterclass series on the fixed stars. And this is a really good introduction talk that could also accompany that for people who might want to eventually pick up the masterclass on the fixed stars through my website shop. I thought that you guys would like this. And also, I'm intending now, as I'm gathering permission from more and more of our previous speakers, to continue sharing some of those replays. I will be going out of town with my family for the kids are on spring break. So we always go out of town for a week or so. And when I'm gone, I have a few different guests who'll be sharing some things, and I'll also be replaying some of those speaker series talks. I'm also doing this because I'm trying to spend more time promoting our upcoming speaker series, which are free and open to the public all the time. They're on our website, and we have great attendance for them. But I think you guys may, a lot of people on the channel are new to the channel and may not know about them. So I want to take a moment to promote those today before introducing you to handing it over to Cassandra and this talk that she gave last fall. So anyway, that's our agenda for today. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe, share your comments and reflections. I'd love to hear from you guys. You can find a transcript of any of our daily talks on the website, nightlightastrology.com. Now, I'm going to take you over there to show you a few things before I introduce the talk for the day. So when you go over there right now, don't forget that if you go to live talks, and then you'll see speaker series. I'm going to take you there in a second as well. But under events, go to live talks, and you will see that Neptune in Love is coming up on March 14th. As the sun gets into a conjunction with Neptune in the sky, we are going to discuss Neptune's significations, whether by natal chart or transit to your natal chart, in the realm of love, sex, and relationships. We already did a talk on Pluto in February around Valentine's Day, as Venus and Pluto were getting together. And so now, as the sun and Neptune are getting together, we're going to talk about Neptune. That talk, by the way, on Pluto recorded, you can also purchase there, but you can register with this link here, and then you'll receive a recording if you can't make it live. You also get the link to attend the webinar once you register. So hope to see some of you there. And then I want to point you to the speaker series. Under events, you'll see speaker series. At the end of this month, you will see that we have 3 speakers, Meghna Bhagat, Dan Waits, and Jolly Knott. Meghna is giving a talk on outer planetary archetypes. It should be really, really good. Dan Waits is going to be talking about Pluto in Aquarius, and Jolly is going to be talking about the lot of fortune in natal charts, all of which are really great, fascinating topics from really wonderful speakers. These are all free. You just click register and you will get a link to join the webinars. You can see the times and dates listed. And then if you can't attend live, a replay link is posted. You'll see right there, watch the replay. And so that's from our recent event with Fernanda Paiva, which was a talk on astrology and cooking. It was really fascinating how she talked about cooking for the different signs. And so anyway, we always have really interesting speakers series talks seasonally. So once per quarter, between a cardinal sign and a mutable sign, you will see 3 new speakers. Those are all free. You can always check out the latest there by going to the events and going down to speaker series. And then the live talks, again, are right there. The other thing I want to point you to is if you enjoy today's talk by Cassandra on the fixed stars, when you go to our shop page, you will see that there are masterclasses. The masterclasses are 8 to 10 hours worth of content on advanced topics in astrology, and we are just wrapping up our winter masterclass on the fixed stars, which will be available for purchase in the shop in the next week or 2. So if you end up enjoying today's talk, you could get like 8 to 10 hours worth of more advanced work on the fixed stars to accompany today's talk. Anyway, so that's the first thing I'm promoting. The second thing, as you guys know, is Ashley's Herbal Apprenticeship is coming up at the end of August. You can check her work out at skyhouseherbs.com. The Herbal Apprenticeship course is under Courses tab. You can learn more about it. There's need-based tuition for people who need it. And I have been, interviewing Ashley at the end of every video. Her interview won't be a part of today's, but if you tune in the rest of this week or early videos in the week, at the end of every day, you can see an interview that I did with her talking about the program. You might find that interesting. That program starts apprenticeship there starts on April 24th. So coming up soon. And that one you can do remotely and follow along at your own pace. Okay, so all of that being said, I want to point you over to Cassandra. So she is going to be giving, I'm going to be replaying for you today a talk that she gave on an introduction to the fixed stars. If you want to learn more about her, we definitely, in the talk, the host of the talk, one of my staff, introduces Cassandra and talks about her bio, and you'll get to know her more in the video. But you'll also see that CassandraTyndall.com is her website. You can book consultations with her, take courses with her. She is fantastic. She's one of my favorite people and favorite astrologers. Just super glad to be working with her over the years. And she's come to Nightlight many times as a guest teacher. So at any rate, I hope that you will enjoy this introduction to the fixed stars. If you don't know what they are, we're talking about the fact that ancient astrologers and all the way up to the present have looked at the zodiacal position of various stars within other constellations, often non-zodiacal constellations, and their mythological meaning, and how that meaning impacts planets when they are closely conjoined to those fixed stars. It's really fascinating, and it's not so different from, say, the modern use of asteroids. It's like an additional layer of information that can be present in the chart to help you understand things. So I hope you will enjoy this talk. And remember, I'm also doing this because in a couple of weeks, when I'm gone, I'll have some content that I'm preparing before I leave, and then there'll be some spaces where I fill in with further examples from the speaker series that I think you guys will enjoy. All right, that's it for now. I hope you will enjoy this talk.
Welcome, everyone. Really glad to be back. As we said at the start, I think I'm certain it's number 4. It's possibly number 5, but I'm not quite sure. So thanks, Adam, for having me back. And thanks everyone who has registered for this webinar, whether you're here with us now or you're going to be catching it on the replay. So my intention with this talk tonight is to attempt to condense about a month's worth of fixed star training that I have in my own astrology school in about 90 minutes. It's impossible to give a full treatment of the fixed stars and their applications in astrology and magic. But what I'm going to try and attempt to do is give you a bit of a fixed star highlight reel where I'm going to try and impart some of my experience in working with the fixed stars and applying them into chart readings. Because a lot of people are really curious about fixed stars. They find them really interesting and enchanting. But if you read any of the material on fixed stars, there's not much there. Okay. So as you move forward with this material tonight or today, depending on your time zone, I'd like, with this material, what I want to try and create for you is like a template or a layer, which can help you in your chart reading when you can spotlight or highlight certain fixed stars in the chart. So maybe, a dozen, 15 stars that you can sort of go, oh yeah, you're not going to see a planet or a point at 26 Taurus the same, or maybe that's 15 Capricorn, 12 Scorpio, etc. So they will change some of your, current delineations. So what are the fixed stars? So I'm sure this is a diagram that probably isn't unfamiliar to many of you. So this is sort of the Hermetic sort of diagram of the cosmos. And so we have the Earth at the center of our geographic model here. And when we're born, we travel down through the spheres and then, of course, and into the elements and into the earth. And then, of course, when we die, we then travel back up through the elements and through the 7 spheres. And it is the layer here, the firmament, is where the fixed stars lie. And so it's really only about, I guess, maybe like modern times in terms of humanity, about sort of 2,500 years ago, where humans started to become more interested in planetary movement or became more conscious of the wandering stars. But prior to that period, it was the fixed stars or the stellar layer um, that really sort of captured the imagination of humans. So it was the rise and fall of various fixed stars were timing markers, weather events, and ancient monuments were built, according to the fixed stars rather than planetary influences. So when we talk about astrology, we're often talking about the seven spheres. In some, probably in most magical traditions, the highest of the celestial spheres, being the fixed stars, is often referred to as the eighth. The eighth, sorry, can't get that out. Eighth sphere. So fixed stars do provide a key part to the celestial world, and their groupings are formed within the constellations. And so then the constellations are based upon what a lot of the zodiacal material originates from. So as I said earlier, I do recommend, if you can kind of, put your finger on a good dozen or so stars, it will start to train you to see the zodiac in a slightly different way, and certain planetary points and angles, certain areas of the zodiac differently as well. So one thing that's very different from fixed stars to planets sort of stems from their names, really. So planets is a derivative of the ancient term a wandering star, and the fixed stars are pretty much that, fixed. So we have the stars or the planets that move and the stars that don't. And so that also forms a very key difference in their behavior. So fixed stars, unlike the planets, they're luminous and they're stable. We do have some fixed stars, however, that they do twinkle a little bit, but for the most part, they throw their own light, and they're very stable. They don't wander, and that's a key part. Now, they do move a little bit over the course of thousands of years, of course, and that's due to the precession of the equinoxes. However, over the course of a human lifespan, they really don't move very much at all. So in terms of our own lives, they do have that enduring quality. So fixed stars don't flit around and retrograde 3 times a year. They're not invisible and sometimes visible. They're very constant. So unlike planets, and their movement is what makes astrology interesting, right? Is the unfoldment of what the upcoming Mars Cazimi might look like, or what is it going to look like when Venus moves into Libra, or what about that Mercury retrograde coming up in December, or how did you go with the eclipse on the weekend, that sort of stuff. It's the movement of the planets and the unfolding drama that speaks to the earth, more to our earthly realm and our experience. But the fixed stars, they don't move. And so in some respects, because they are classed as the eighth sphere, they are kind of divine, untouchable, and holy. So fixed stars are embedded into the firmament, and they are as close as we can get into the divine empyrean. So it was Dante that said that as a star, fixed stars are just crazily, imaginably vast. And he said that the vaster they are, the greater their virtues. So the fixed stars are likened to the sphere of God, and in some magical practices, it's where you aspire to go to gain the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel. In some other practices, there's something about the fixed stars that's sort of a bit detachment, sort of that non-attachment, Buddhist component, sort of slash that they're not of this realm. So they're very much sort of like a next layer or next level rather of consciousness. Fixed stars have also been very linked to anchor timing to ancient calendar systems. So one of those that people are becoming more familiar with are the lunar mansions, nakshatras, and things of that nature. They also do provide a key part to our celestial world because they're grouped into those constellations, which derive our zodiac meanings from. So like anything that is linked to constellations, the fixed stars are very much, they're rich in myth and lore. And so the location of the fixed star within that constellation will be the focal point, more often than not, of the myth that's associated with the star. So when we are looking at stars and planets and where are these stars in my chart, what we're really doing is just trying to locate a star as a fixed, like the fixed star as a point of reference in regard to the zodiacal longitude, for a certain sign. So let's just say, for example, a particular fixed star, once, that sort of, it moves through the, like a planet moves through sort of 24 degrees of Libra, for example, it will kind of activate that fixed star. And so anything that any planet that kind of passes under a fixed star or over that zodiacal position, it is said to be conjoined it. Obviously, it's not in the actuality, but in terms of the zodiacal longitude, it's how we locate these stars. And one thing that I also wanted to bring up in this sort of preliminary points is that when you read a lot of fixed star material, they will often talk about, a particular star being of the nature of Jupiter and Mars, or of the nature of, Venus and Mercury and different kind of planets. I would encourage you to not kind of try and pull meaning out from likening a fixed star to a planet, because the fixed stars are located in the firmament, sort of, they're embedded into the dome, so to speak. And so when a planet or even an angle, so your ascendant or your, midheaven, for instance, if that planet is infused with that starlight, that star is giving an additional layer to your planet, not your planet informing the fixed star. So, imagine, there's a particular wandering fixed star. Imagine there's a particular planet or a wandering star, and it just passes over this sensitive point in the zodiac. And that sort of has something quite magical and meaningful there. So that star, be it Venus, be it Mars, whomever, it's wandering, and on the day of your birth, it's infused with something that's, virtuous, as Dante said, the greater, the more vaster it is, the more virtuous it becomes. So there's something very, very magical and special about having planets with fixed stars. So when we think about other elements of astrology that we already know about, not elements, it's not the word I'm looking for, other tools, I should say. So even a planet that is essentially weakened by its zodiacal position, can be strengthened if it's infused with a fixed star. So an example of that would be good Mars and Sag, right? So Mars and Sagittarius is coming up, and Mars is not particularly special in Sagittarius. But if that Mars happens to be at 9 degrees, then you've got extra martial Mars. Okay, so there is that potentiality for the fixed star informs the planet, not the planet informing the fixed star. It's like you've got this sort of firmament of fixed stars, and the wandering planets are capturing that starlight. Because planets, for the most part, don't have a great deal of light of their own, but fixed stars are exceptionally luminous and bright. So it's really important to remember that stars kind of outrank our planets. So fixed stars are like the celestial overlords, and the stars don't get their likeness from the planets. So again, I just do tend to shy a little bit away from stars being likened to planets. I wouldn't like throw the baby out with the bathwater on that, but I just don't find that especially helpful in my experience. So the nature of stars. So everything in the material world, aka our wandering stars or our planets, find their origins in the divine world. So there is a little bit of having to turn up a little bit of a magical / spiritual scale into understanding how fixed stars work in a certain way. Fixed stars are in the realm of God. Okay, so they do have a bit of an overlord type of influence there. These stars also have a lot of magnitude. And so the amount of light that a particular fixed star radiates will make it more powerful. So from my understanding, at least within our solar system, there are about 20 known stars that are rated as a, first magnitude star. A sixth magnitude star can be just seen with the naked eye, but not so much. So there are about 20. The top 20 are the elite or the all-powerful stars, and having planets or angles on sort of our top 20 are really worth knowing a little bit about. Some stars, they just will get tattooed into your brain, either because you've got a star, fixed star influences in your own birth chart, or you will come across clients and other charts where the story of the fixed star is just very obvious, and you see it a few times, and then you just sort of train your eye to look for that, and you sort of get that association there. Another question that I know it's going to come up, so I'm just going to get it out of the way now, sort of some guidelines for interpretation. And so, and one of those is going to be orbs. Okay, so when it comes to fixed stars, I usually tend to keep it pretty tight. Usually within 3 degrees. I might sort of, 4 to 5 at most, if that's applying. Definitely not separating. So I probably only do 1 to 2 if separating. So I think the tighter you keep it, the more accurate you'll be. If you start widening orbs too much, you just sort of like lose that intensity, and you just may not hit the mark quite so much with your delineations. So 1 to 2, I probably, keep it tight for the lower magnitude stars. And you could probably just, if the brighter the star, maybe you could just give it just that little bit more room. It's something you have to play with. I don't, there's no real rules on this, right? I'd probably allow a little bit of extra room, slightly, be a bit more generous with the royal fixed stars, which of course we'll go through that as well. Okay, so I've got some other things I've got a whole bunch of notes here, and I'll probably go back to some of the material if we have time. But what I really want to do is just sort of, just do a little bit of preliminary stuff, and then just kind of, it's the Mercury-Mars conjunction, just hit you with a whole bunch of data so you can actually use some of this material and take it with you. So why even go there with fixed stars? Why have these tools in your Astro toolkit? I believe because you'll have delineations no matter how much you give your best description of this crusty Saturn in Capricorn, or, or this, whatever it is. And then if that's around 15 degrees, you're going to miss a mark. Okay. There are just some zodiacal locations that you're just not going to quite get the whole story unless you include the fixed star. Reason being is because, remember, our fixed stars supersede our planets. So if, that Saturn in Capricorn just happens to capture that 15-degree point in the sky, it's going to have a little bit of a quality to it. Excuse me, I shouldn't say a little bit. I should say a fairly obvious quality to it. That's going to be very different to planets, or at least in this instance, Saturn being in other parts of that sign. So with a few of those key ideas out of the way, let's get going. Okay, so Zoom has just done an update, so everything's a little bit different in the panel here. So okay, all right, let's see if I can flick my screen now. Okay, so firstly, the 4 royal watches. So I'm going to start with those, and then we're going to move into some of the Bohemian stars. So we've got 4 royal watches, and so there's 4 stars in the classed as what's called as the 4 royal watches. And so these stars more or less make a cross, like a zodiacal cross, in the 4 corners, in a sense. And so these 4 stars are really exceptionally bright. And so some of these stars have been, I shouldn't say responsible for, but they coincided with heralding solstices and equinoxes in eras gone by. They were navigational tools, so whether that was land or sea. And they were very helpful for telling the time at night. And in a Persian context, they get their sort of royalness, in terms of their groupings. So there are ancient stories from the Zoroastrian era about the creation of the world and who's going to control it. And so these stars, these 4 stars, are believed to be implicated in these stories. So, from the dawn of time, name your culture, name your faith, whatever it is, that these stars do represent sort of that, perhaps that eternal battle of forces of good and evil. Each of these stars, they have positive and negative manifestations. Their royalness tends to bring great glory and success, but also a nemesis or an obstacle that needs to be sort of challenged or overcome. One of the ways that we tend to see, planets is through their light. So we see Venus because she's really beautiful and sparkly. So naturally, she relates to shiny and attractive things, right? And so we have Saturn as a contrast to that, who's a little bit sort of dim and not quite as lustrous. And so he represents some of the things in life that are a little bit dull and lacking in lustrous at the same time. So, the more mundane, practical components of life. And so our stars are the same in that respect. It's their light levels and their brightness will tell us something. And so these royal stars are exceptionally bright. And so the first star in the royal grouping is called Aldebaran. And this star is in the constellation of Taurus, and it's the red eye of the bull. So we sort of think, okay, well, it's Gemini, but we're like constellation of Taurus and, red eye of the bull. So there's a contradiction there, right? And so hence this is, these are examples of how if you just went into sort of your basic Gemini descriptors of stars, but if that planet was at 9 or very close to 9, you would miss something really key to the energy of this area of the zodiac. So, Gemini does have many qualities. Steadfast and endurance, as someone with enough Gemini can attain that's not one of the qualities of Gemini. However, if you've got planets, say at 8, 9, or 10, there's going to be a little bit more, of that steadfastness, that endurance, than what your average Gemini planet will be. What you'll see here with the influence of Aldebaran, it's that sort of red eye of the bull. So it does have a bit of a red eye focus to it, more of a, one-eyed focus, as opposed to the multiplicity of focus that Gemini has. So there's a certain slow burn with this particular star. It's that sort of stubbornness as well, which you would expect, with this sort of Taurus constellation energy there as well. So it does show a sustained and a slower effort. Now, like any star that is red, you can expect that there's going to be some kind of martial style influence there, a bit of a Marsy vibe. And this star will bring a certain consistent and determined longer term focus. So it just gives that more sustained, enduring powerhouse energy than what most Gemini influences do. So it doesn't change as much. Okay. So it's going to be harder to change the mind. It's going to be, still be very clever, whatever that, have a fickleness to it, but it doesn't get as bored or doesn't flit as around as much as other Gemini planets do. I've seen this star show up in charts where there's still a cleverness to them, but it's not quite like a sharp tongue or a quicksilver tongue. It's a little bit deeper, if that makes sense, a more thought out or a more enduring cleverness rather than just the quick-wittedness. Aldebaran's also associated with the star of spring and new beginnings. So it still does have a very that fecund Taurus type of underlining element there. So it's still a Gemini planet. I think it's important not to throw out the Gemini part there, but it has this stellar infusion of a building, a plotting, and an enduring quality that just adds that flavor to a Gemini planet there. Our next royal star is Antares. So as I mentioned, the royal stars form a cross across the sky. So they do, now they align roughly as a mutable cross. Prior to that, it was more of a fixed cross. Hence why the constellations are still in the former sign, and the precession of the equinoxes has sort of pushed that zodiacal position into the next. So this is another red star. So that's going to give you, a clue to the qualities of that. Like Venus is bright and sparkly, red stars are going to have a Marsy quality to them. And so this one's in the heart of the Scorpion. Okay, so yeah, it's got a little bit of that to it. So Antares, it is, even the name, it's like ant Ares, which Ares is the sort of more Roman, from memory, the more Roman pronunciation of Aries. So there's, of course, a stubborn, fixed quality to a planet that's placed here. It's a lot more martial, however, than Aldebaran because of the name as well. It's literally that sort of anti-Aries energy there. So this is a bit more of a like a pure Mars energy. So before I was mentioning how my suggestion is to not rely too much on stars being of the nature of XYZ planet. However, I think Antares, it's red, it's in the heart of the Scorpion. That's probably one exception. So if you've got, even if it's Venus at 10 Sag, it's going to still have Martian qualities to it. From the top of my head, I'm pretty sure Britney Spears has her sun at 10 Sagittarius, and lately she's been on the Instagrams dancing around with knives, very martial. So it is a star that has that Marsy vibe with the Sagittarian flavor as well. So we could call that as a philosophical warrior or a spiritual warrior or something along those lines. There's a passionate and enduring quality to this star, and it has a willingness to take on conflict. I found that this star can also hold grudges, and there's a real kind of win at all costs. It's Mars, it's this Mars flavored star, and it's in the heart of the Scorpion. And in some other astrologies, I think from memory, it's the Chinese astrology, they see this part of the zodiac as a dragon. So it's kind of got this like spitting fire. There's that dragon quality to it, and that's, who's the fastest, who's the strongest, wanting to win at all costs. My son has his ascendant here, and even when he was really little, it was always like, I'm the fastest, I'm the strongest, I'm the best, I was like, yeah, I know, mate. So there was even this one time when we were at a swimming, he was like 3 or 4, and they started to have these independent winning races, and we would sort of step back in the pool and they'd dive in, and I could see that he was like looking at his competitors, and then comes out, they grab your shirt, they come out of the pool, and somebody beat me. And I was like, it was the most obvious expression of that placement. And it is that sort of wanting to be the fastest, strongest, the fittest, the best at whatever it is that they do, a very sort of competitive edge to stars there at around 10 degrees of Sagittarius. And even if you listen to Britney Spears when she just talks of, maybe not so much these days, but interviews from way back, that real focus, that real wanting to be the best at everything that she did, very determined energy, definitely she displayed it back in the day. Now, our next star, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with and have heard of, and this is Regulus. And so Regulus is one of the brightest stars in the sky. It's located now, I think as of 2011-12, at 0 Virgo. So very rare to be in a time frame where not only does a fixed star change degree, but it also changes signs, which usually happens about every 72 years. So we have been in that sort of rare fixed star era, if you like. So its constellational position, or sorry, its zodiacal position is now Virgo, but its constellational position is still in Leo. And so it relates to the heart of the lion. And so this is a star of courage, of fame, of success. Regulus is quite a coveted star. A lot of people really um, like Regulus because it's considered to be really highly fortunate. So it's really, for elections, for talismans and magic, it's a really favored star. It's, a real kind of solar type of infusion of brightness, of visibility. So it is a star of kings, of leaders, and I guess in our modern day celebrity as well. It doesn't always give you courage. It's not necessarily about courage. Like maybe sometimes in some situations, maybe a bit of Dutch courage or a fake it till you make it type of courage. Even if you're not courageous, it can still give you courage due to your position or due to the work that you do. And we've all seen, well, I mean, I think of different shows I've watched where you've had a very weak king, but he has fortune and favor due to his position. So one way to think about Regulus is that it does bring eminence and at least a desire for fame, or potentially, I think it's also important to remember that our charts are not, they're our charts, but they're not just about us. And so sometimes we can see these stars show up through other parts of our life. You might have the ruler of your 11th house, for instance, conjoined Regulus, which might mean you have people, friendships who are, they're well positioned, or they might have eminence in their field or something along those lines. I think of a client of mine. He is a jeweler. And he's quite well known for his work, but no one really knows him. And he's got Venus in Venus on Regulus, and so there's the jewelry there. Another example, and I think this is another way where you could see stars show up, because sometimes people will think, "Oh, I don't have any fixed stars in my chart," but we also have secondary progressions. And one of my favorite examples of how obvious Regulus can be. And this is the thing with the fixed stars. They're very simplistic in their expression. They're very obvious. So Courtney Love, back in the 90s, so she's born from memory with 0 degrees of Leo midheaven. And by the time she was about 29, when her midheaven passed over Regulus, that was the time that Kurt Cobain died, and she was super famous at that time. She came into great eminence, but it wasn't necessarily due to her work. It was sort of due to her marriage, how it ended, I guess. But it was an eminence and a fame, but it wasn't necessarily the sort of fame that maybe she wanted, but it was probably the height of her celebrity, if you like, even though she's been around forever, but everyone knew who she was then, even if they weren't, into that style of music and all of that jazz in the 90s. So this probably reminds me of another point with the fixed stars, that sometimes they come with a warning, particularly with the royal stars. Yes, they do bring sort of this fame and eminence, especially with Regulus, but and you think about the holy, divine, magical nature of these stars. And as a general rule, humans are not very good at handling such power or having like wielding these type of royal qualities. So sometimes, and especially in Regulus's case, it comes this fixed star in particular comes with great highs but also great falls. So what goes up must come down. And so there can be that revenge streak that comes through with Regulus, is something to watch for as well. Okay, so Fomalhaut, it's about sort of 3-4 Pisces. And this star is located in the fish's mouth in the constellation of Pisces. And so this is the archetype of, the poet, the painter, the magician, the artist, the writer. People with planets, around 3 to 4 Pisces, they have this ability to tap into the invisible realm. As you can imagine, with a royal star in the sign of Pisces, there's this really incredible and uncanny ability to give expression through some type of vehicle. So if that vehicle is Mercury, well, you can imagine they're going to be a beautiful writer or a speaker or a communicator. If it's Venus, well, they're going to create probably great arts or have, romantic relationships that are worthy of, I don't know, Mills and Boon or something like that. I'm just trying to think of some examples here. Kurt Cobain, he had the sun conjunct Fomalhaut, and he did sort of have a magical essence to him and a magical quality. And even on, I don't know, on some paperwork of his, when he had to write his occupation, he actually wrote that he was a poet, not a musician or famous guy or what have you. So he called himself a poet. There's somebody else whose work I really do enjoy, and he has Mercury. Is it Mercury? Yeah, it's Mercury conjoined Fomalhaut, and he writes a lot about ancient Scandinavian sorcery and religion, creates mythic role-playing games, and is a musician as well. So all of those magical qualities are coming through there with Fomalhaut. So there is an eminence that comes through. It's a royal star, so it's going to have a brilliance and a brightness, and that comes through sort of artistry and imagination. So if you have a planet there for Pisces, yeah, you're gonna feel that one. I'm also just thinking about Kirk Hammett, the lead guitarist from Metallica. He has Jupiter there, and if you ever watch him play, he goes into another realm. Like, he's not even, I don't think, of his physical body anymore. And you do see that a lot with musicians too. So that brings an end to our 4 royal stars. And so there's a lot to say, but also not a lot to say about them, because they're just so obvious. They're just so bright. You don't have to really grapple with these stars. Should I talk about this? Do I need to bring up this, Fomalhaut piece? You just talk about that, and, your person, your client will just know, oh yeah, I totally get what you're saying. So there is a certain, you can take it to the bank in terms of your delineations here. All right, so let's get on to some other stars now. Some of them I'm sure you know a bit about, and I'm sure some will also be new to you. So Algol, Caput Algol. I'm sure we all know of this one. So, without a doubt, she is the most fearsome and notorious of all of the fixed stars. So, we just sort of call her Algol. Kaput Algol is sort of the more formal term. And the translations of that is, roughly pile of corpses, head of the ghoul type of, you know, stuff that you may not always want to talk to people about in terms of that capacity. So this star is a little bit different to what I've described so far, because while the other stars are fixed and stable, Algol's actually a binary star. So she's a bit different. And so what we have here are two stars. And so one is bright. One is bright, and then we have another one less so. And so what happens is they eclipse each other. So there's already this kind of occultish vibe to Algol, because it's seen and then sort of unseen, or barely able to be seen. And so these two stars, they eclipse each other about every 2.6 days for a period of around 10 hours. And so they, in the sky, she appears to be like a blinking eye. So kind of maybe a little bit daunting, if you like, from a visibility perspective. So it doesn't really matter which star lore or mythology you're learning. There's variety of cultures around the world that reference Algol as a severed head, but nowhere in any of the writings do we find anything about her decapitated body. So therefore, we can get some delineation from that, right? So we do see the idea of decapitation is something that is quite obvious with Algol, but what I see it in people's charts is more about the ability to lose one's head for some reason. Now that can be due to stress, worry, anxiety, but it also can be a certain, when you can just be filled with a certain white rage, or when you just get so like one-eyed and wild, and you can almost just get out of your head and sort of lose your faculties in being rational. So Algol can have this sort of a dark primordial energy to this star that can sometimes be seen as or show up as violent, but it's more about the inner darkness or the exploration thereof. There's something that's very like a feminine rage linked to her, like a suppression. That there's something that is very unrestrained with Algol, but has been restrained. And there's sort of like this tribal, uncivilized quality to her. And so there's this idea, and I talk about this a lot with clients in session, that finding a pathway or an outlet where you can healthily unleash this energy within you. So that might be through art or through music or through sport, somewhere where you can just kind of go rogue or go wild or go uncivilized. So you're giving a healthy channel for what is sort of dark energy, right? So you can sort of use this dark energy or this, negative energy, and transmute it into something that's really powerful. and really strong and really protective, because I think that's something that doesn't get spoken about this star enough. And that is, it's such a, that feminine protective quality. Um, it's, I always forget her name. And if you've been in classes with me before, I always forget her name, but that old granny from Game of Thrones who took revenge on Joffrey or Cersei, and she says, "Tell Cersei I wanted to know it was me." It was like going to any lengths to protect what she loves. It was just I just thought it was an excellent Algol moment. So we also do, if you've not, obviously Game of Thrones just feels kind of ancient now, but there are sort of more modern examples of Algol in play. And Jordan Peterson is an example, and he has his ascendant on Algol. And a lot of his, recommendations or suggestions is, particularly for men, is to, he's quoted as saying, find your inner monster and learn how to control it. And I thought that was a very powerful way of, that idea of channeling that energy in a way that's kind of healthy. Another example of Algol on the ascendant is Joe Rogan. And, during the pandemic, his head was kind of put on a digital spike, and he was kind of not, very popular there for a while. So, as I mentioned, Algol can be a very protective star. She will bring wrath of injustice, if injustice has been done toward you. I've also seen that she can show up as sort of like the protector, if you're a witness to something, and you have to give testimony, in order to protect, a wrongdoing or something along those lines. So if you have a planet or a point, very close to 26 Taurus, there is a healthy outlet of, your darkness, for want of a better term, is really helpful. And using that energy and transmute it into a really positive thing, because a lot of people are like, "Ooh, Algol," but she's really incredible when you when you make friends with her and find that sort of protective, matriarchal kind of energy that she brings. So next we have, sort of going in zodiacal order through these stars, is the Pleiades. So they're a star grouping or a star cluster. And so again, when it comes to working with stars, I think it's kind of important to try and keep your orbs really tight, because there are some, you could go from Algol, but if you're kind of trying to stretch your, 28-degree sun, for instance, is she Algol or is she in the Pleiades? So, that's why it's sort of helpful to try and keep these a little tight. So, star sisters. So in Greek myth, they're known as the sisters. And in Norse mythology, the Pleiades are birds, probably more likely crows. And those crows are that of which the vulva, the Nordic witches, can communicate with. And so the Pleiades, unlike Algol and the royal stars, they are very subtle in their energy, and they're really powerful though. So I think there's almost a blink and you'll miss this quality, if you overlook energy around zero Gemini. So these stars, or this star cluster, they tend to give an energy of an ability to see into the unseen. there's a very psychic / thinning veil quality to this star cluster. They're sort of sensitive. Even the image of this painting, there's a sensitive, visionary, sort of a gentle and magical quality to them. But they're kind of not looking anywhere. Like you see that in the image. So they're sort of feeling the ether around them. They're visionary and magical, but then they're kind of blind. Okay, they're not actually seeing, maybe more sort of feeling. I remember when I watched Vikings a long time ago, the seer in that show was a very good example of these stars, because he was blind but could still see. He was a seer. So sometimes when you read for somebody with planets at 0 Gemini, you can sometimes see that there might be an actual issue with the eyes. Maybe they can there can be an issue with the eyes, or the ability to see what others can't, or the inability to see what others can. So it can kind of go both ways there. There's almost with these stars, like a sort of a little bit of a tragic tale that kind of can come with them. A bit of a sadness, in the sense that, is it fallen angel, or like a tragic type of theme that comes through. Like it's this idea of maybe mourning, if one of the sisters dies or marries, or leaves in some way. There's something about these stars that it's because that veil is thin with these stars, right? So, and there's a lack of vision. So there's sort of a gain, but then there's a loss in some ways. And so the Celts used this, when this star was rising, as a month of mourning for their dead friends. And so from that sort of stemmed some of the things that we know to, now, like, Halloween just around the corner, or Samhain, Day of the Dead. It's very linked to the idea of these stars. So planets here, they do tend to have vision and insight. But of course, there's always a caution with the stars, and that is to not be too narrow-minded, or give harsh judgments. So that's something that you might see show up in the Pleiades. Capella. So Capella is, a fairly, like, not a dramatic star. It's at 21 Gemini, and it's interesting because it's a very yellow golden star. So it gives sort of this this nighttime wash of golden light. And so it's in the it's in sort of a constellation of the Charioteer. And there's an image associated, as there always is with these stars. There's images, and the image is the shepherd sort of tending the flock, or taking care of the animals. And so there's something about this particular star of, when you take care of things, it takes care of you. So it's kind of solar, like Regulus is very solar, but Regulus is very eminent and very, very bright, sort of great heights, great falls. Whereas Capella is much more of a gentle energy. It's, if you've got a planet or a point at 21 Gemini, it'll be important to sort of look at this planet, and it's going to ask you, what do you need to take care of? So then it takes care of you. So, the shepherd tends the flock. So then those sheep, provide, milk or wool or what have you. I often think of, various shows when they're riding through the fields and they have to stop and water the horses. You know, you can't just ride a horse endlessly without sort of stopping and feeding it and giving it water and make sure the hooves are well tended, right? And so the same would go for your physical body. You know, if you had, 21 Gemini ascendant, well, maybe having to take care of the body is going to, we all have to take care of our bodies, but, maybe you also use your body, as a tool. Maybe you're a athlete, or you have, a hard labor job and you have to do that sort of body maintenance. So there's something here, it's the constellation of the charioteer. So there's a chariot sort of factor there. So there's this idea of going places or having to take a drive or go for a ride. And so, Capella might be asking you, where do you want to go and what maintenance do you have to do to kind of get you there? If it's Mercury, for instance, you might be thinking about learning and travel and, how do I get there? If it's Venus, how do I get my desires? What do I have to do, kind of thing? If it's the Sun, it might be about how your intentions are well executed in the way that you intended them to be. So it might be about not being misunderstood with your intentions, so to speak. So there's an overall idea here with the golden light and volition. Having a gold star at nighttime is kind of interesting. And it tends to speak to this idea of care, like mutual care, like relationships. Gemini is the sign of the twins as well, right? And the sense of how do you get that, what I want and what I need being in a relationship of reciprocity. So that can also come through, in many ways. Like, if you need your car to go to work every day, well, you've got to make sure there's petrol in there and the tires are pumped up, right? So you take care of the car, it takes care of you. So it's not the most obvious star. Like, I wouldn't necessarily, oh wow, you got 21 Gemini, but there might just be a little something there that's kind of, may highlight a tension point between what your volition is and then how you obtain that, or how do you achieve that. And I have a star here or a planet here, and when I kind of like meditated on that a little bit and really thought about these concepts, I was like, oh yeah, it's not life-changing delineation or anything, but it did just give me a little bit of layer of insight that I was like, oh, okay, that's how that connects to that. Because also remember, if you're, let's just say, for example, if you've got that star there at 21 Gemini, you might want to also have a look at, what area of life is that star ruling. So, if the ruler of your MC, for instance, is at 21 Gemini, well, that might tell you something a little bit about your midheaven or your career. Okay, so all in all, Capella is quite a supportive star, but it's not as influential as such as the royals. Sirius, however, I think you would not want to miss this one if you came across a planet around 14 Cancer. So again, this is one of the other stars that is binary. So we have Canis Major, big dog, and Canis Minor, the little dog. So this is the brightest star of all of them. So it's definitely one you want to probably keep a mental note of. So Sirius is the star that sort of heralded the flooding of the Nile back in ancient Egypt. And so with that, I would imagine, it comes with a bit of a warning, doesn't it? It's very bright. It's very blue. It's like that white hot, like blue fire, which is very immortal and eminent. So because this is a star that's sort of Canis major and minor, there's like dog and wolf connections with the star. And you'll also see, as a continuation of that, weather events with the star, right? So we have dogs. 15 Cancer is, getting pretty hot in the Northern Hemisphere. And so you get that sort of connection, dog days of summer. But I would recommend kind of sticking a little bit with the dog themes. Example is, well, it's not the height of summer here in Australia when it's 15 Cancer, but we do have a native dog. Okay, so the dingo is still a symbol of some mythologies that originate here as well. So there are many mythologies throughout the world that are linked to dogs or wolves in particular. So in Native American traditions, the wolf is very prominent. As I mentioned, we've got the dingo here. In the Norse tradition, it is this star is symbolic of Loki's torch that awakens Fenrir, who sort of devours the sun and moon and unleashes Ragnarok. Okay, so it's not the wolves and wild dogs are not friendly, cuddly lap dogs that watch Netflix with us. So they are a prey animal, they are hunters, and they are hungry. And so it's not this kind of romantic notion that some people have with wolves. So it's a very hot, it's a very bright, and it's a burning type of star. So this kind of immortal fire, and it can awaken a lust for immortality, that kind of wolf and man, that beastly man, a very invincible type of energy too. And so what this star tends to do, it connects people to an inner hunger and a consuming type of spirit, something that's very devouring, like that blue heat, that really hot blue heat that can almost become, it's almost Promethean in a sense, because it's very sort of devouring, it's very hot, but it still has a bit of a sacrificial quality, because in order to devour and to hunger, like the wolf puts itself in a bit of danger. So you'll often see this with the energy of this star, is that there's something about the energy of it that it runs hot, it's hungry, and it's devouring. It's also very eminent. So one of the most obvious examples, I guess, is the idea of the eminence, the heat, and the devouring and the sacrificial quality is the USA, one of the charts that's popularly used for the USA. The sun is at, I think it's 12 Cancer maybe. And I guess it would be fair to say that the USA is fairly eminent and hot and bright and sort of devouring. It has that sort of devouring quality there, and very self-sacrificial in some respects too. So when you have a planet or a point at this point, that again, the caution, the shortcoming is to know when to pull back a little bit. Like the wolf is kind of a bit of a prowler, but they've also got to be smart, because they don't want to sacrifice themselves in order to achieve one's ends. So there has to be a little bit of maybe a little bit of a cunningness there, or a recognition of, you know, you've got to satisfy your hunger, but at what cost? So the little dog star is Procyon, and this one's located at about 25, 26 Cancer. And so like Sirius, who's the big dog, this is the little dog. So it's a smaller dog, but it's still hungry. And it could probably be a little bit more dangerous in a sense, in the sense that you ask any vet and they'll say a small dog will bite you before a little one, before a big one does. So Sirius, it wants to steal fire from the gods, it's that Prometheus type of idea. Whereas to me, Procyon feels a little bit more North Node Rahu-ish, in the sense that it's more hungry for material hungers to be desired. So that can be, literally that, food, material possessions, career progression, sex, alcohol, drugs, all the things. And it's not necessarily like a greed, but it's just more of the hunger of having it. So it can be a very ambitious type of energy as well. A long time ago, this was, probably even really before I was doing much astrology, there used to be this client that came into where I worked, and he was an accountant, and he had this accent. He was Indian, so he had a thick accent, and he'd come in all smiley and laughing, and he'd come in and he'd say, "I love money." He'd just have this way of saying it, and we'd just all laugh. Then he'd always qualify his statement, but not at the cost of other things. But this was just this joke he had, because he's always sort of self-promoting. And funnily enough, he had his son at 26 Cancer. So he was sort of my my Procyon sort of example. He was really hungry to make that money, but not as sacrificial, as he wasn't prepared to burn himself out in order to get his means met. So if you have a planet on around 26 Cancer, it's going to show you what you might be hungry for. So if it's Jupiter, for example, it might be knowledge, wisdom, and experience. Saturn, well, maybe you're not that hungry. Maybe that's the problem in of itself. Like maybe having difficulty in discovering what your hungers or desires are. So Courtney Love, another example, she has her moon here. And so she was always quite hungry for fame. Like she was really, as a young person, that's really what she wanted. And the moon is in the 10th. And maybe it's, I'm pretty sure it's the 10th. And, she would put her body on the line in order to achieve that in more ways than one. So, okay, Aldebaran. So Aldebaran is in Libra and positioned at about 13 degrees. So this star, it's in the constellation of the crow's wing. And so this is, if you think about the crow, they're black. And, when those wings flap, they sort of a dark wind, right? So there's, if a crow, there's different ideas around crows, but in a lot of mythology, a crow flying near you is not often a good omen. Not in all cultures, but in many. So this star can lead to the idea of dark thoughts, and those dark thoughts, or that sort of bad wind or dark wind, that can be thoughts that you think of yourself, like the thoughts that go on repeat in your mind, or the dark stuff that you hear elsewhere. So, maybe that's gossip or slander, or maybe you're the spreader of the bad wind. Maybe you like a bit of gossip, or uh, saying things of uh, you know not the nicest things about other people, I guess is what I'm saying there. So there is a capacity with Algorab that, it is the capacity to speak evil or malicious, or, cursing others, um, or having that thrown back at you is always a possibility as well. So this can be, how you can have people who sort of make suggestions, but they're trying to like manipulate you to kind of get you on side, or get you to buy into talk that might be negative, or speak badly of things or someone or what have you. So this could be other people, or your own self. I often have seen this star show up for people in respect to legal situations. I know a few lawyers, and they have planets at 13 Libra, and they have to say really nasty things about people sometimes, especially if it's like civil stuff, divorce stuff. They have to kind of sometimes drag another human being through, some less than ideal talk. So it can be a little bit, there's just this air of not nice speech, or gossip, slander. It's sort of like those women magazines from like way back. It was all that sort of celebrity gossip and things. So a couple of one example that I think of from ages ago now was Bill Clinton. He has his ascendant ruler, Venus in Libra at 11 degrees, so very close to that. And, his Oval Office adventures back in the day, what was that, like in the 90s, whenever that happened, they were not honest. And his denial of them was also not honest. So a little bit of an example there of, maybe not nice talk, or nice things. And then lies that kind of backed all of that up. And, there's probably more to come, but that will be for another time. All right. So the next one, speaker. So this is, a really nice star after that one. So Algorab can be a little bit, watch for that one. And there is a certain darkness to Libra, I think, that doesn't get talked about as much as it should. So this is my personal favorite star. A lot of people love Regulus. I know they do. It's kind of grabs all the glory, but I'll always put my money on speaker. And I am biased. My satellites there. But this star, it's in Libra, but the star is in the sheaf of the wheat of Virgo. So Bernadette Brady speaks of this star as being, really benefic. And I found it to be so as well. It is a star of protection and benefit. If you get the chance to do electional work with this star, do it. It's so good. It doesn't hold the glory of Regulus, of course. Regulus really does have that fall from grace, which speaker just doesn't seem to have. So with Sirius, we have the dog star. With speaker, I nicknamed this one the cat star, because positions at 24 thereabouts of speaker, of Libra, they just seem to land on their feet. It's that star of protection. Things have a way of working out. It's just a pure dose of, really helpful, really good energy. So it's just, oh, goody, that's really is pretty much all I have to say about that. There's also sometimes with speaker, I've sometimes called it the cat star. Sometimes I call it the Rolling Stone star, in the sense that you don't always get what you want, but you'll get what you need. And there's that sort of protection, that safety net, that safe landing. It's always there with speaker. So it's just super supportive, protective, and beneficial. Arcturus. So again, this one is about 1/2 of a degree away from speaker. So again, you're going to have to be, for some instances, people will have to kind of, weigh up a planet. Is it actually close to this one, or is it actually close to the other one? This is a really interesting star, though. And it's a kind of as you can see, it's very golden. So it does have that sort of leader, sort of solar quality to it. It has boldness, leadership, and originality. It's a star of kind of, courage and faith as well. I often think about, excuse me, I'm starting to lose my throat a bit. I often think about this star as Ragnar, in the pioneering quality. So the show Vikings, I know I always just hark back to these examples, but it's this example of even when paths are closed to you. So someone tells you no, or you can't do that, or that's no longer available, or you've got a great idea and it gets shut down. You find a new way, just like Ragnar did, and there's just that sort of like never taking no for an answer. The difference between these two stars is that with speaker, fortune seems to land on you. With Arcturus, it's more like you go out and carve your own fortune, or you go out and find your own fortune. So there is a little bit of a slight difference there with that one. It's not a star I've come across a great deal to give like massive amounts of sort of feedback on, but I have found that it's slightly less Libra. It's that those cardinal qualities of Libra probably come through more than anything else, but it's not consensus, go with the flow. It's like if there's a shutdown or a no, then they just go and find another way. So yeah, that main difference is fortune lands upon you with speaker, and Arcturus, fortune lands where you find it. Alfeca. Okay, so Alfeca is one of my favorites. It is just one of those ones that I just really do enjoy seeing show up in clients' charts, because it just comes up really, really obvious and literally. So it is a star of blessings and curses. And that sounds a bit harsh straight off the bat after I was saying it's really exciting. But sometimes what I've found when I've tried to work with fixed stars in a practical way is you see repeating themes with people who have planets on these stars. And this star is located in the north. It's called the Northern Crown. And so when you put a crown on your head, there's a weight to it. I think in a few weeks the Crown final episode comes out on Netflix. But the Queen would always talk about the heaviness of the crown and the weight of it. So there's this idea that it's bejeweled and it comes with great blessings, but there's also a curse. There's that good side, bad side, up and down, positive, negative. And so I really see with people who have stars in this position, I've got quite a few family members that do, they have this really great capacity to be able to take the good with the bad, or do something that's a bit arduous because they know that there's going to be the outcome that they want. So there is something, the ability to be able to see, uh, they can see, they can take the ups and the downs, I guess. They're not ones to just kind of, throw the towel in easily. There's a sense of duty. There's this sense of, I'm going to see things to the end, and I just accept there's going to be ups and downs, good and bad type of thing. My grandfather had this, and I found it really interesting when I was researching this star a long time ago, that it was, the idea of roses and thorns came up. He had Venus at 12 Scorpio, and he was a champion rose grower. And he always taught me growing up, you just take the good with the bad. You don't complain about it. You just take the good with the bad, and that's just life. You just get on with it. And so, I've seen other people, somebody else in my family has their midheaven at 12 Scorpio. And so they're very good at, even dealing with jobs they don't really like, but they can extract the good from it. So, and I've often seen roses or gardens or flowers, but roses in particular, on more than one occasion, being a signature for people with planets at 12 Scorpio. Vega. Now, this is another one of my favorites because it's a star I love seeing come up, because it's going to give you something that you don't expect, because it's in Capricorn. So you're going to assume, well, it's going to have certain Capricornian qualities, but I just don't really see it with this particular star. Now, this one is a bit complex and rich in terms of its mythology. And the theme with this is enchantment. Now, you may have heard of a myth where Orpheus goes into the underworld and he wants to free the soul of his dead love. But Persephone, so he goes there with a lyre. I should say that first. So he's a musician, and he's going to woo his lady back with his, electric guitar down in the underworld. And so he's there playing to awaken the soul of his lover, and Persephone's under there already, and she's enchanted by his amazing down picking, or whatever the story is. And so she makes a promise to him that, I will free the soul of your lover if you walk out of here and you don't look back. Like it's like a story for the ages, right? And so, promises made, the deal is done, and of course he looks back, and so his love is trapped in the underworld forever. And this is what I see with this star. There's something like this enchanted magic that comes through music. Okay, and it comes from someone who is a bit, not always, but unexpected. And so naturally you see this position a fair bit in musicians' charts. I've seen it quite a few times. So there is something, there is a little bit of an overlay. Sometimes people ask me about Fomalhaut, because we've kind of got this magic enchantment kind of thing, but they are a little bit different. This star is very contrary to Capricorn, for instance, whereas Fomalhaut and Pisces kind of align. And what I see with this, with Fomalhaut, it's more being off with the pixies or off in the ethers, whereas Vega has a little bit more of a dedicated, almost that Capricorn flavor still comes through with it. So two musicians I've seen it shows up in, I'm sure there's plenty out there, but I don't know a great deal of them. James Hetfield from Metallica, so his ascendant is at 15 Capricorn. And Trent Reznor, his ascendant's at 11. Touch wide, but he does show those qualities of pain and but sort of that pain yet enchantment of loss. Okay. So that is Vega. And a lot of people find when you can, really sort of develop your interpretation of this star and you get to explain it to people, they get their Capricorn planet that's there. And Deneb Al-Gedi. So this one lies at 23 Aquarius. And so this star is it's a really interesting star from the respect that it's, a little bit what you might expect, Saturn. And it is a star of rules. Now, in the world, we have two types of rules. We have the kind of law and ethics rules, and those are our man-made rules. They're designed, whether they're right and moral is another thing. And then we have the natural laws, metaphysics, chemistry, just the rules of nature. Like, you can't really plant things in the dead of winter and expect them to grow. Everything has its own season, right? So there's some, many of the natural laws can't be defied. And so there's the human world and the natural world. And this star, or people with planets on this star, have a really great ability to be able to work the system to support them. They can be a prominent stickler for rules, but at the same time know how to use the system and how to work around the rules. So it's kind of, is it sort of knowing the rules in order to rewrite the rules a little bit? And then sometimes there's knowing the rules and then deciding, I'm not partaking in the rules. And somebody that, I've been following for quite some time, that's the same person who I use as the example with Fomalhaut and having Mercury there and doing the music and designing computer games and all of that jazz. This same person also has their sun at 22 Aquarius, and he will often say, use the system to get out of the system. And I just thought that was such a perfect sort of quote for that star. And that might be, I'm seeing a lot of people do this kind of now, like they're working really hard at just, using the system to, extract the resources that they need from this like man-made system so they can go and, like purchase land or buy, live off grid or do things in the natural world on their own terms outside of the system. So they can have this way of blending the both. So the idea here with Deneb Al-Gedi is how can you build that bridge between these two worlds, the man-made world versus the natural world, and how can you, and if you're like so far in one, then the question might be, how can you find that sweet spot between the made up world, the one that we all exist in, and then the real world. So Deneb Al-Gedi is also a very protective energy as well. So it can be, help protect you, with the law, with rules. Because, just because something is law or legal doesn't make it right. Okay. And so sometimes, that the natural law will always prevail. And that's what this star can be helpful with. So I think we're probably very close to time. I see that there's some questions and things coming through. So that's the official end of my slides. I wasn't sure how we'd go for time, and there's a couple of other stars I can touch on. I'll also arrange for a handout, like a printout, to be uploaded on the Nightlight website. So you can, print that out and just have a little bit of a cheat sheet that you're like, oh, okay, well, what fixed stars are happening, at XYZ point in the zodiac. So if you want to stay in touch, seeing what's happening, my website is the place to go for that. And, if you're after any fixed star work, or with your own chart, or just general readings, or just want to grab a webinar or whatever, there's a code there, Nightlight20, on the website. So I think we've got questions and things like that. So I'm going to stop the share and we can go through all of that.
Okay. Do you want me to read them out to you?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So the first one from Yolanda is just asking if there are any books that you recommend with regard to the lore and myths.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the good ones is this one, Bernadette Brady's Fixed Stars. There's another one too. I couldn't find it anywhere, and it's called Star Planet Combinations. I think same author, Bernadette Brady, Australian astrologer. I think she lives in England now. Yeah, so that'd probably be the two that I found the most helpful personally. Okay. Oh, I can see the questions now. So yeah, thanks, Yolanda. Do you use fixed stars in all aspects, or okay, so firstly, conjunctions only. Yeah. Conjunctions only. Otherwise, yeah, everything means everything, and then nothing means nothing. So I'm not saying don't. I personally don't. So no, conjunctions only, and tight ones. Do we include outers in the do we include outers in the interpretations? I don't tend to factor in outers on fixed stars personally, mainly because there would be nearly a whole year of people conjoined Neptune and Regulus, right? I'm pretty sure I thought I had the book. I'm certain I've got the book. I just can't find it. I'm pretty sure that in that book, Bernadette Brady does give some descriptions of the fixed stars and the outer planets. But if I was to give it a bit of a shot, like Neptune and Regulus, yeah, it's sort of almost like this diffusion, right, of that fame, or that diffusion of maybe the height gets there, but you never get it again, or that sort of real up and down nebulous kind of energy of something that you would probably want to be a little bit more enduring. I mean, you probably have to think about it, maybe how some of those themes play out for you. If Neptune is, in an angular chart, angular house rather, yeah, it could be a little bit more prominent. But as a rule, I personally don't factor in the outers. Are fixed stars usually just in relation to the natal? Personally, I just use fixed stars in the
Cassandra,
natal.
we've lost you, I think.
Oh, really? Can we maybe just have in the chat or something like that, if someone can say that you can
No,
hear
you're
me?
right. No, you're right.
I'm back.
Yeah.
Okay. What have we got here? A fixed. Okay. Yeah. So fixed stars, I personally just use them in the natal chart. Secondary progressions I find are really, really interesting, because you will get to touch that fixed star for a time frame. Okay, so I did touch on that a little bit with Courtney Love, how it was 1994. It was her secondary progressed midheaven, moved over 29 Leo. And that was sort of, you know, it wasn't like good famous in some respects, but she, like, everyone knew who she was, whereas before they didn't. So it goes to show that was 1 year of her life where she was at the height of eminence. So secondary progressions shows up really well. I mean, if you use solar arc directions and things like that, I would factor it in. Solar returns, unless it's your perfected planet, yeah, I probably would maybe factor that in too. And you know, if your perfected planet passes over a fixed star, not all of them will in a 12-month period, but if it does, you know, watch what happens on that day. You know, let's, if we are talking Regulus, for instance, and let's just say your you know, perfected planet is Venus and she passes over Regulus during the course of your year, then, you know, maybe you get a hot date or something, or, you know, these are just little things to watch for. So when you learn how it works for you, and then you can sort of, and other people, you can figure out what you know, what is worth considering and what isn't. Would you use them with other sensitive points like the lots? No, because the lots are a calculation. So fixed stars are sort of actual things, whereas the lot is a calculation. So it can't really get infused with that starlight. It's the same. I don't really factor in the nodes on fixed stars. I mean, I might consider it, but it would not be the linchpin of my of that chart reading, if that makes sense. Okay, transits to fixed stars. Yeah. Yeah, it's a big one. Yeah, so we've got a question here. Transits to fixed stars, Uranus and Taurus coming up to Algol. Any ideas on potential mishaps? Yeah, there's a lot. Okay, so yeah, I mean, you know, Uranus is going to go over Taurus, over Algol. Then she's very swiftly going to move over to the Pleiades. So you can watch this, right? So obviously the outer planets via transit make for a good exercise in sort of star watching, fixed star watching. So yeah, definitely factor those in. And it gives you that idea, like, you know, say for example, with Uranus coming up over Algol, you'll get that sensation or that feeling collectively of what that fixed star energy brings. Obviously, Jupiter's going to go there first. You know, we had Saturn sort of hit Altair, which isn't a Bohemian star, so I didn't factor that in tonight. Pluto's going to go back over that. So yes, definitely watch for those you know, those movements. It can be helpful. Mars is decent as well. It's obviously a shorter time frame. You're only going to see that conjunction last for about 36 hours, like the tight conjunction, but it'll still give you a little bit of an inclination of what the star's about. Assuming these placements can involve where the house is, yeah, for sure. So it's going to show you kind of the where, like where is that energy going to take place, right? So, you know, if a fixed star is, you know, in your cash flow, well, that's probably where you're going to see that fixed star energy show up. If it's in your 11th, well, it may not be about you so much, but it might be about your friends or your groups, etc. Okay, Sarah, I have Procyon on my midheaven and Speaker on my ascendant too. Oh, Speaker's a great one to have on the ascendant. So hopefully, yeah, that's given you a little bit of additional insight. Would 1 degree Pisces? Yeah, I would take that because it's your ascendant. So one thing to think about when we're working with the ascendant and the fixed stars is that you get like a pure dose of that fixed star coming in. So if it's a fixed star on your midheaven, a fixed star on your descendant, or even the IC for that matter, you get no planetary, you're not having to factor in, oh, but it's Mercury, or oh, but it's Venus. It's kind of ascendant straight into a fixed star. And so you get that pure energy. And I see that in my son, he's got Antares on his ascendant. And even when he was a little guy, I can't even remember, but sort of kindy, like it was before school. And I saw him get a bit rough and tumble with these kids. And I thought, oh my Lord, he's going to be a brawler. Oh, and the mum in me was thinking, oh, my angel, he's a monster. He's not, but I could just see this pure Mars in him. And it was a thing. So it's that pure energy, a 4-year-old, somebody beat me in the pool. And I just, see it in him always. I'm a soccer god now because he's in his soccer phase. And so I just don't play soccer at school, Mum. I'm a soccer god. So it has to be, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best. So if he had something that tempered that, like maybe Saturn, or Jupiter, or even Venus, something that just might kind of change that energy, but it's not. It's just a pure shot straight to Antares. So it's going to bring so the ones on the angles are big. So yeah, I would definitely count your 1 degree. I think you said 1 degree ascendant. Are there any other associations? Well, yeah, I mean, music is, so sorry, the question, I'll read it out just for the recording because it may not be on the screen. Are there any other associations with Vega beyond music? I have Mercury, chart ruler, exactly conjunct Vega, but not a musician. Yeah, well, it might be something to do with your creative thoughts and words. Maybe you don't communicate in a Mercury and Capricorn way. Maybe it has a certain level of enchantment to it, or maybe you have words or a way of speaking that really captivate people, or a really nice voice or something like that. So again, it's also going to be sort of, okay, well, here's a few ideas about the fixed stars, so how might it apply to me? Because a lot of the stuff about fixed stars is myth. It's image. So there's often images and pictures associated with them, and just stuff I've seen along the way. Would you delineate a person's progress chart connections with the fixed stars differently? I would imagine someone can get used to the natal placement, but when progressed, it could be pretty shocking. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because the difference with a progression is that you're really only going to get it for a period of time. So, if your progressed sun passes over Regulus, then that is 1 year, really. Like if we're going to use a really tight conjunction, maybe the year prior is, things are building, and then maybe the year of, you're as bright as you're going to be, and then it sort of fades out. And that's going to be, wow, like, that was a year where I was ticking all those boxes. But if that's a lifetime scenario, well, that just becomes part of the norm. So those maybe ups and the downs, the rises and the falls, might just be something that you don't even notice it, because you just take it as a part of your experience. But when you have that for just 1 year, and if you're not aware of it, this could be the idea of, somebody rises to a certain level of prominence and they kind of go, oh yeah, I finally made it. And then they sit pretty and thinking, okay, yep, I've climbed the mountain, I'm up the top now. But then, that progression ends and then it fades out, and then they try and get back to the top, but they had their shot and they maybe didn't really milk it for all it was worth. So if you think about it, like with Courtney Love and her midheaven, she had her little bits of getting back, but you know, in terms of being a household name, I don't think she ever, you know, she did movies that kind of, you know, were kind of critically acclaimed and maybe an album or two here, but for the most part, yeah, not a lot. Okay, Regulus Neptune, one hit wonders. Yeah, that's actually really good. Maybe all of those are 80s people, you know, they're one hit wonders. I'm sure there's plenty around now. Do you read fixed star conjunctions to chirons, prominent asteroids? No. No. Not saying you can't, but I don't. I can only say, hot damn, this presentation was the beat. Okay, cool. Thanks. Thank you for that. All right. What about fixed stars on angles? Oh yeah, I think I've explained that one already. Does it, hang on, it flicked back. Hang on, does a fixed star talk about your, yeah, totally. Yeah, because remember, your chart is your chart, but it's not always about you. So if you've got, say, for example, why do we always default to Regulus? But you know, if you're say your descendant is conjoined Regulus, right? And your partner may be, you know, obviously probably not famous, but you know, they might hold a really eminent position in their company at work, or they might be quite well known within their industry. It's possible. Or they might be, you know, the leader or the CEO or the kind of head honcho of what they do. Yeah, this is a question I get a bit, like if you've got Jupiter conjunct Regulus, but Regulus is in detriment, you know, which it would be now, because technically Regulus is in Leo. It's still Jupiter and Regulus. Yeah, I don't really think the detriment part matters that much. Not that I've experienced thus far. It's Jupiter and Regulus. I don't think it really matters what sign you've got it in. Obviously, it's a different quality to the Virgo one as opposed to the Jupiter qualities. I've seen those two show up a little bit differently. Probably, I would say that the Virgo version is a bit more muted. It's a bit more humble and enduring as opposed to the Leo. Okay, I have Venus at 24 Libra. Okay, that's nice. I've often said things just work out for me, and I also can be focused on what I want, even if others don't agree. And I always thought that my moon in Aquarius was, but oh, okay. So yeah, so I always thought that my moon in Aquarius was exactly conjunct MC, but now wonder, could it be Arcturus? Yeah, Arcturus would be Venus. So if you have Venus at Libra, so we've kind of got the speaker Arcturus. Yeah, so if I just have a look here, I might be able to bring it up. I've got a table here. Oh yeah, it's not, yeah, I didn't think I'd be able to do that, but I just thought I'd check. It's a what you'd have to do in that instance is look at the minutes, and in the handout that I'll be adding to the webinar, I've got the fixed stars in their exact sort of minute and degree and minute, so you'll be able to kind of make that call on whether your planet is closer to one or the other. Okay. Well, there's a lot of fixed stars. So the question is there a reason you chose these stars as opposed to others? Okay. There's so many. And so we have sort of those 20 kind of brightish stars. And so there's the royal stars. And those, I think, as astrologers, you have to have a bit of knowledge of those, right? The others are the Bohemian stars. Well, they're important too. And so I think I've included a good chunk of those, nearly all of them. And so they're kind of the, I guess, most utilized stars in astrology and magic. So yeah, that's why I chose them. Or else we'd be here till probably until Regulus gets into Libra, which is quite some time. Would you say that the fixed stars can reinforce interpretations that can be seen in the chart without using them? Oh, 100%. Like as a confirmation of other interpretations. I'm thinking about Sun Antares conjunction, confirming Mars MC conjunction, for example. Totally. So you've got a similar kind of scenario as my son does. So he's got Antares on the ascendant and Mars is conjoined the North Node. Yeah. So you've got a similar thing, right? So you've got thinking about Sun Antares, so you'd have what, 10 Sag, and then Mars is on the midheaven. So you've got that sort of double Mars amplified, right? So that Sun at 10 Sag, give or take, does have a Mars influence, and then you've already got Mars conjunct the midheaven as like a chart signature anyway. So yeah, in that case, Mark, definitely a double whammy. Another great Tyndall presentation. Oh, thank you. No one's really called me just Tyndall for a really long time, but thank you. This presentation has got me excited about fixed stars. Thank you for that. That was my intention, because when you read about them, it's either wafty, like kind of, okay, how do I even begin to try and interpret that? Or it's just violent death and murder, which, whatever floats your boat, but it's not very helpful when you're trying to add a little bit of extra to, understanding your own chart, as well as, helping others understand theirs. So I know just the sort of few fixed stars I've got in my own chart, I just know what a layer it gave to me. And as I said at the beginning, they are held in a, the fixed stars go back as far as like forever. So they're really deeply embedded in the human consciousness compared to planets. And so there's something very, if anyone's like familiar with any type of, various traditions in magic, whether it's Golden Dawn, there's a whole lot, Kabbalic stuff, moving up through the spheres into the fixed stars, and reaching the fixed stars is a layer of stellar intelligences that is kind of coveted, to be honest. And so as astrologers, if we can kind of utilize or operate in this capacity with that information, I think it really is incredible if you can do that. So yeah, I hope it's really helped.
Thank you, Cassandra. I think
You're sorry.
I think you've got a lot of people now going quickly to their charts, and
I know, it's
putting all of
really,
their fixed
yeah.
stars.
I mean, I think it's really, yeah. I don't know. I just think they don't get enough credit, the fixed stars. Yeah.
There's a lot for people to work with. Okay, I'm gonna quickly share your website so people can find you. Have you got anything going on that you want to tell us about?
Well, it's probably not quite so relevant for this crowd, but I do have a fresh intake or enrollment happening for astrology studies starting on the 15th. Readings are available. My Golden Circle, which is my astrology membership. They're probably the main things at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, so you're CassandraTyndall.com.
That's me.
Nice and easy to remember.
Yes. And I couldn't think of anything fancy at the time, so it's just me.
Well, it's good to put your name out, then everyone knows who you are. Thank you very much. Okay, well, thank you. We will have, I'm just going to share my screen again now with the nightlight. Oh, I forgot nightlight. Okay, so the recording will be up within about 24 to 48 hours. So you will be able to come back to this page, and register now will change to watch now, and you will be able to watch this talk for 7 days after it's been uploaded. So this is the last of the speaker series for this season. So keep an eye out over the next few months and keep an eye out on the events here. The new season will come up here, and you'll be able to register for those for the winter season when they're ready. So keep an eye on there. And also, just to remind everybody, if you're not in the classes with us at Nightlight Astrology and you would like to join us, we do have a new year 1 course starting on the 18th of November. So if you would like to come and join us there, then the enrollment can be found here on the courses page too. Okay.
November's the month to study astrology, hey?
Yes, that's the time. Okay, well, thank you very much. If you're all ready for bed now, Cassandra, I think you need a good night's sleep. We appreciate you coming, and thank you.
Oh, it's fun. Yeah, thank you so much for having me again.
We hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Thanks for being here.